London, in the year 1600. Imagine waking not to the gentle hum of traffic, but to a symphony of far more primal sounds. The persistent creak of wooden carts on cobblestones, the distant bleating of livestock being driven to market, and most overwhelmingly, the smells. A thick, pungent tapestry woven from coal smoke, human and animal waste, rotting refuse, and the pervasive, inescapable odor of thousands of bodies living in close quarters, largely without clean water. The city, a sprawling, vibrant organism, was awakening, breathing out its daily exhalations into the morning air. It was a place of burgeoning ambition and relentless growth, its timber and stone facades rising ever higher. Yet beneath this outward display of progress lay a silent, terrifying truth. No one, not a single soul, lived clean. Before we delve deeper into the astonishing realities of this forgotten age, remember to subscribe to our channel. We uncover the forgotten stories of human existence, peeling back the layers of time to reveal how people truly lived. Your support helps us bring these incredible historical narratives to life. Early modern London was a metropolis on the cusp of greatness, a booming hub of trade, innovation, and an exploding population. Its docks teemed with ships from across the known world, its markets overflowed with exotic goods, and its streets pulsed with an energy that drew people from every corner of the kingdom. Yet, this dynamic growth was shackled by infrastructure that remained stubbornly medieval. Streets were narrow, twisting labyrinths, often unpaved and perpetually muddy. Houses, built cheek by jowl, offered little ventilation, their upper stories often jutting out so far they almost touched across the street, plunging the thoroughfares below into perpetual gloom. And sanitation. It was a concept barely understood, certainly not implemented on any significant scale. The inevitable outcome was a terrifying equation, density multiplied by a complete absence of hygiene. The most basic element of life, water, was not merely a commodity, it was a dangerous luxury. The idea of a personal shower or domestic plumbing was centuries away, a futuristic fantasy no one could even conceive. Londoners relied on a patchwork system of public wells, many of them shallow and easily contaminated. The mighty River Thames, the city's lifeblood, was also its sewer, receiving a constant deluge of human and animal waste, industrial effluent, and the grim offerings of carcasses from butchers and tanners. Water vendors, known as cobs, carried heavy yokes with buckets, selling water door to door, often drawn from the very same river that received the city's filth. Drinking this water was a gamble. It could mean survival, or it could mean a slow, agonizing illness that would claim you within days. This grim reality gave rise to a peculiar myth of cleanliness. Full-body baths were exceedingly rare, not just due to the immense effort required to heat and transport water, but because of a widespread belief that hot water opened the pores, making the body susceptible to disease. Instead, people practiced a superficial form of hygiene. They changed their outer garments, often multiple times a day if they could afford it, believing that clean linen absorbed bodily impurities. They doused themselves in strong perfumes, masking the pervasive stench of unwashed bodies rather than eliminating it. Cleanliness was an illusion, a facade maintained with fabrics and fragrances, while beneath the heavy layers of clothing, dirt and grime lingered, breeding grounds for unseen horrors. And those horrors were ever present. Invisible diseases were a constant companion. Fleas, lice, and rats were not just pests. They were ubiquitous residents in every home, living alongside people, sharing their beds, and feasting on their skin. Without any scientific understanding of contagion or germ theory, diseases spread like wildfire, their origins a complete mystery. Fevers, sudden disappearances, and frequent en masse burials were not anomalies. They were a routine, tragic part of daily life. Yet, amidst this widespread illness and constant threat, the city continued to function. Markets bustled, apprentices learned their trades, and the gears of commerce ground on, propelled by a populace that knew no other way. This was simply life in London, 1600. The air itself was a constant assault, a thick, acrid blanket woven from the city's ceaseless activity. Every home, every workshop, every public house relied on the burning of coal, a fuel that provided warmth and powered industry, but exacted a heavy toll. Smoke poured from countless chimneys, fireplaces and industrial kilns, mingling with the exhaust of horse-drawn carts and the general effluvia of human existence. This wasn't merely a fleeting haze. It was a pervasive, inescapable presence. London's narrow, winding streets, designed for medieval foot traffic rather than modern ventilation, acted as funnels and traps, holding the particulate-laden air close to the ground. The smoke, unable to dissipate effectively, hung heavy, especially on still days, creating a perpetual twilight even at noon. To breathe in London in 1600 meant to inhale this invisible cocktail of particles. Chronic coughs were less a symptom of illness and more a common characteristic of the Londoner. Eyes, perpetually irritated and watering, were another telltale sign of life in the burgeoning metropolis. There was simply no alternative. The biting cold of the English climate demanded fire, and fire, in turn, filled the air with ash, soot, and the chemical byproducts of combustion. It was a trade-off no one questioned, for warmth and cooked food were immediate necessities, their long-term health consequences utterly unknown. Interestingly, this constant coal burning laid the groundwork for the infamous pea-souper fogs that would later define Victorian London. While not yet as dense or as deadly as those later events, the atmospheric conditions and the pollution sources were already firmly established, a grim precursor to future environmental crises. Yet, despite these profoundly unhealthy and challenging conditions, daily life in 1600 London didn't grind to a halt. The city pulsed with an undeniable vitality. Markets, overflowing with goods from across the globe, buzzed with haggling merchants and eager customers. Children, perhaps more resilient than their modern counterparts, played in the cobbled streets, their games undeterred by the grime and the smells. Artisans diligently plied their trades, their workshops ringing with the sounds of hammers and saws. The burgeoning theatre scene, with playwrights like Shakespeare at its zenith, offered escapism and entertainment to all strata of society. For the inhabitants, these conditions were not a source of terror or constant anxiety. They were simply the fabric of their existence. This was normal. It's a stark reminder of how adaptable humanity is and how profoundly our perception of normal is shaped by our environment. What we today would consider utterly unlivable, they accepted as the baseline of being. London in 1600 was a city suspended in an awkward, fascinating limbo, perched precariously between two vast epochs. It clung stubbornly to its medieval beliefs, its limited scientific understanding, and its woefully inadequate infrastructure. The remedies for illness were often rooted in superstition or ancient, ineffective practices. Sanitation was a word yet to be truly defined, let alone implemented. Yet beneath this veneer of ancient ways, the city was subtly, almost imperceptibly, beginning its slow, arduous march towards a more enlightened future. Seeds of medical advancement were being sown, albeit unknowingly. A rudimentary, if often reactive, public health awareness began to emerge, primarily in response to devastating plague outbreaks. These early, desperate measures, though far from comprehensive, laid vital groundwork for the profound changes that would eventually transform urban living and public health. The transformation was coming, a slow, unstoppable tide, but it had not yet arrived. The Londoner of 1600 lived in the quiet, grimy calm before the storm of modern progress. Londoners of 1600, in their daily struggle for existence, were largely unaware of the constant peril that surrounded them. They navigated streets teeming with refuse, breathed air thick with smoke and the stench of human and animal waste, and drank water often contaminated with unseen dangers. This wasn't a choice. It was simply the reality of their world. Imagine a life without microscopes, without germ theory, without even the most basic understanding of hygiene as we know it today. The very concept of microscopic pathogens, invisible killers lurking in every shadow and every drop of water was centuries away from discovery. Yet, despite this profound ignorance of the true nature of disease and environmental hazards, thousands upon thousands of individuals woke each day, went about their business, loved, laughed, and strived. They built lives, raised families, and contributed to the vibrant, if chaotic, tapestry of London. Human history, when viewed through the lens of early modern life, is rarely comfortable. It is often a stark and humbling tale of silent adaptation, of resilience born not from scientific understanding, but from sheer necessity and the innate human drive to survive. In the narrow, winding streets of that ancient city, where sunlight struggled to penetrate and the air hung heavy with the effluvia of life, merely surviving was in itself a significant achievement. Every day was a testament to the tenacity of the human spirit, a quiet victory against odds that, from our modern perspective, seem almost insurmountable. They didn't see themselves as heroes, they were just living. This journey through 17th-century London should prompt us to consider just how much of our modern comfort, our unprecedented health, and our extended lifespans are built upon the bedrock of scientific understanding that was entirely absent in the past. The simple act of washing our hands, the availability of clean drinking water, the sanitation systems that whisk away waste, the vaccines that protect us from ancient scourges, these are not mere conveniences, but triumphs of intellectual curiosity and relentless scientific inquiry. They are the fruits of centuries of observation, experimentation, and a collective human effort to understand the unseen forces that shape our existence. We stand on the shoulders of giants, but also on the often unacknowledged sacrifices of those who lived and died without knowing why. Reflect for a moment on the sheer resilience of humanity in the face of such pervasive, unseen threats. What does it say about our species that we could not only endure such conditions, but also thrive, innovate, and lay the foundations for the world we inhabit today? It speaks to an incredible capacity for adaptation, a profound ability to find meaning and purpose even amidst hardship, and an unwavering, if sometimes naive, optimism. The Londoners of 1600 were not just figures in a history book. They were living, breathing proof of humanity's enduring spirit, a spirit that continues to drive us forward, even when the path is unclear. If these forgotten stories of human endurance and the often unseen realities of the past intrigue you, if you find yourself compelled to uncover more about how people truly lived through the centuries, then consider subscribing. Join us as we continue to explore the hidden narratives, the surprising facts, and the profound lessons embedded in history. There are countless more tales of resilience, ingenuity, and transformation awaiting discovery. Stories that bridge the vast chasm between their world and ours, reminding us of where we came from and how far we've truly come.